Hello, I was shot at the day before President Trump was shot. I was shot at with a pellet gun by one of the people involved with cousins and people that went to campuses they went to and their teachers and a Blue Trails shooting range. Involved also with Weathersfield police switching names and forging names. Increasingly, police forms, including state police associated with whiting forensics. Other police forms, all natures of roles within on off the state corrections offices in Weathersfield, Hartford Town Line, and on off the state judicial branch offices. And like know how Route 3 goes along there. Increasingly, people along Route 3. Like there's people with the name Delafaro involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting evidences with judges and their family and other families associated with them through the years who have roles of predicate acts in my street, even though I never saw them on my street. Increasingly, also like along Route 3, which is the state judicial branch offices, including Weathersfield Police at Pizza, has wire crimes with Weathersfield Police. They're refusing to identify themselves. They have roles further with child abusers, leaders of kids, proven through time, with recorded ties to them everyone missed. Increasingly, people with a marked violent, a whole bunch of people tied from Weathersfield to conjunctions to it, like Elm Street and Rocky Hill, have roles with foreign and domestic military leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and since sequence shifts and with the names associated. Like there's a Phil Cololo brought up by a Bob Chase, and there are more people with their kids. There are proofs that the kids, after the intelligence, they take oaths, and that's how they keep. They leave out things. They leave out criminally foreign influence. We're going to observe this because we have to observe first how James Madison and the founders behind him, they had a plan, which there was no means except for that plan. And then they went and got George Washington to agree to help them and to use that plan. And then they forced other founders. And slavery was entrenched north and south. This is relative, for example, to questions that we should have asked honestly and had the answers be spoken and demonstrated. See, we have voices cut off by little trick games that are getting away with use/s of predicate acts with facts stuck into databases. This breaching method knew that there would be forgiveness for people where little kids are that know little kids of interbranch families or intelligence families. These are identities of law, but they can't speak for the law as the law is capable of being discerned and spoken for by someone who has black pupils, whites of eyes. We don't even have to have / whites of eyes. We don't even have to have a legal license to know that we could discern. Lawyers have state criminally foreign influenced collusion/s with the breaching method that employed black and white to communicate other than nature communicates with these colors. And this is not even debatable. Nature is increasingly demonstrating to us the presence of a breaching method, not only at our country. This came from semi ancient times, from before modern religious messengers were even born. See, this breaching method, these shootings, when the intelligence community recorded them to an extent consciously self-valuing, how they have uses of descriptions like profile where they say lone wolf. These are collusions with Adam Lanza's medical community associated with him, with the same house associated with shooting the pellet gun, hit the grass near me. The day before the President Trump was shot, no. And to understand what went on there, you have, like, for example, you have to understand what witch trials are about, regardless of who made them up or what. That's what you have to ask, in other words, and in the context of things. And to get that right, you have to understand, again, that breaching method. by understanding the plan of James Madison, how to counter it, and how it made counters to it discernible. So how, if you, in other words, if you have to hide that you're a counter, you can't counter it. In other words, so how the slavery was left north and south, and how the South began, how the North started to fight against slavery while it was still entrenched with it. We were supposed to explain and understand this. So the Institute of Living, I believe I put a link for it. They were founded on the campus of Harvard Hospital in 1822, with slavery still entrenched, as it was right up to the end of the Civil War. And for how to understand, as a black actor playing a white person in the South, how they're the ones who were believing that they were fighting for freedom, because they were, and the North was, but through a breaching method as much as through the full plan of our founders. But this breaching method maintained postures and natures of integrity only as criminal insidiousness natures of positive, simultaneously as collusions with the real causes of the worst negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. This breaching method knew it would only allow things that people would only be capable of blaming, calling, you know, bad adjectives or criminals, while knowingly being and having been collusions with and as criminals. But see, the law had predicate acts with facts, and torture, extortion, slavery of selves and other humans, forced. Otherwise, that body would be sensed, even if it was a majority of people, even if it was everyone. And that would be easily adapted to, including all groupings of humanity. This breaching method, no one was watching. It was watching. It knew that once it forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded humanity to defend themselves with the words of law, the syntax of law, with the names of the sciences, as systems tactical ulterior from the one that is grouped 5 ways, distinctly from how it is grouped 3 ways as itself. For example, not just because, but why and how it is manifest. Cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall /S. I'm not a doctor. Also use the hyper-evidential, where lawyers associated with doctors in the medical locations have stayed roles with tactically juxtaposed distinct natures of organized crimes, also to hide behind how they are non-distinct, and how there are more of them there associated with very few people than there are streets in our cities, and then there are houses in our cities. Don't forget we have rights. One of the amendments of the Constitution is that we have rights that are too numerous to list. And we have Marbury versus Madison. I was taught that the summary of Marbury versus Madison, I'm not a lawyer, that Marbury versus, I was taught by a pro se litigant, a successful pro se litigant, that Marbury versus Madison means that real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. But again, too, we have the history of James Madison and of the rest of our founders, self-value being and having been forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded, not interpreted correctly. And the means they gave to discern that, they use that instead to measure and maintain that self-value. Opposite, because it doesn't collude with readings of Marbury versus Madison that can't defend themselves and afford to have discerned. how properly and how integral it is. They made it, they made it cheap. They kept it cheap because they're keeping that plan left out. Hey, if you don't understand that plan, you don't understand how Native Americans are partially our founders too. You can't discern the predicate acts with facts method against names A through Z of the human species body of individual bodies. You can't discern how the identity of the hyper simultaneous has distinct species bodies manifest, distinct from our own, and not having them non-distinct too. Like even the birds have eyes, have an ability to communicate with us. Even the insects do. You could test this. In other words, and there is manifest species body of individual bodies, and group difference slash S are in demonstration of the same thing. The exceptions are in demonstration of the same thing, and simultaneously, how it is a hyper additional nature, how it uses exceptions in exception nature, and a special difference, the ways we know, but also hyper additionally. And they are simultaneously positive, or it is a criminal insidiousness nature of positive. Per how nature shows us that too. How to discern the difference between positive or negative as criminal insidiousness, as nature. See, this is where nature is value slash value as nature, and simultaneously, distinctly, is value as nature slash nature as value. Because there is an identity that is not only bigger than right to left and left to right. Like one part, your complete identity is simultaneously greater than and is simultaneously more finite than all the physics of your body. And so increasingly, right to left, you are distinct from left to right. I mean, and you are simultaneously non-distinctly. And what completes this, keeps this true, is how the identity of the hyper simultaneously is the way it is, inseparable from all things, even if they're made up. It has an individual grouped and simultaneous identity of relativity to it as the identity of hyper simultaneous, of which there is only one. To discern this, we have to discern, for example, how there are 5 parts of time. And the time treatments with the tellings of American history, of world history, for example, in other words, all that contained, leaving out the breaching method. Clearer than day. English was revealed to be taught, appreciating how the sciences share an identity, and where and how they appear not to, where and how that comes with demonstrations of how there and demonstrations of the same thing. Like in other words, it will only stay positive onto itself. And Earth has a concentrated, special difference. So we could make itself negative to itself. But that will just be forced from here as value. Leaf of Hadith, being not physical space transfer or alone, but for space nature transfer. Nature being identity's volume science itself. But where each identity is complete, as relative to, like, for example, the semi. It's not just about the semicolon. There are proofs that the ancients referred to the semicolon as the semi-victory rather than as the semicolon. But that name was changed to keep this from being discerned. For example, because this is, for example, they don't want us to correlate how and why the identity of the law, values, predicate, the discernment of predicate acts for the discernment of criminal insidiousness natures, like wrongdoers, wrongdoing, itself, like killers, like criminally foreign influenced individuals, groups, or everyone at once. Those breaching method laws that were simultaneous when the time of which trials were claimed to have been. You don't leave out how there's a torture, extortion, slavery method system, everyone against everyone sustained, even when they're helping each other. Because this method knew that increasingly nature would demonstrate there's a human fact treatment nature breaching method, keeping evil people, imposing upon ourselves. This breaching method came from semi-ancient times, perfected before modern religion countries were even born. Somewhere on YouTube, they'll have there's the interview between Vladimir Putin and Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson was influenced to cut him off. Vladimir Putin, who was trying to explain before their country was born, even before, which was before us. They were born like us, though. Slavery was entrenched North America, South America, and our founders had to hide and change their actual motivations and how and why actually they end up telling us to get the Constitution on a bridge. They said that overtly like that when they had international meetings. Every one of those countries had been formed as collusions with the hyperforeign. This hyperforeign had what, if you're even entertain it, let alone somebody rolls with it, it causes negative value nature progressions, acts in nature. Not just the foundation of things that would have been overcome naturally. For example, the suburbs were designed for torture, extortion, and slavery. And anyone who denies that contains inherently, actively, and progressively to their quality, aspect, and nature, effect, treatment, nature, style, etc. No, premises, treatment, sequence valuing, demonstrations of the same thing, /S. See, but we have this quality of fact, treatment, nature necessary to overcome it without, to go right be beyond physics. So everyone's forcing the identity of everything to be smaller than it is and greater than it is, tactical ulterior from how it shows everything to be simultaneously. Those two simultaneously, great and small. The worms, when it rains, they walk up from where all the bugs are gone now. The birds are still hungry. Now the worms walk up, but they're no longer walking up, the worms, because we've taken away the grass for too many years. The suburbs were designed again with slavery entrenched Northern America and South America. Not just a whole bunch of international countries fighting with themselves, etc. Learn this at notes at Central Connecticut State University. I also read on my own, though, in the book about James Madison's plan. See what people that doesn't fit with the narratives and natures where they have the other names. In other words, everyone speaks about the mental health, leaving out the collusions and the delusions of mental health experts originally and still black pupils. We have black pupils' rights of eyes to know that they have failed to bring this, which is inseparable, as well as the breaching methods employments of all that black/white communicates instead effectively used to measure and maintain other communicated for it. And the cause of that, also demonstrated, instead used effectively to keep things blamed on things other than yourselves. So we're going to make a pantheism religion, and to make it hyper transparent, that's going to be part of the ancient gaming system. We have to start it at New York because A through Z of the human species body of individual body names is an individual species body. The way it tells us to appreciate that simultaneously / hyper simultaneously independent and simultaneously united. Its way, or it demonstrates. Thank God, for example, this can be verified. This is a God variable. When you say thank God, you have to be able to verify it always, not denying the slightest exception. You don't leave out the slightest exception. You don't leave out sequence shifts, let alone self-value. The self-value part I'm bringing up because this is how the breaching method used and uses logic and natures of styles of logic and nature, descriptions and names descriptions and instances descriptions, styles, offensively affront to people who know predicate acts with facts involved with all location / s. We have means to discern this. There are connections between unconnected murderers and killed people. There are time use / s of people next to body dumping spots of totally different murders, including the people at the prisons, timed use / s of that, as ones involved with the spots next to the state corrections offices and next to the state judicial branch offices. Also involved with names on Church Street in Old Weathersfield, with various natures of real estate companies and other natures of companies and Facebook people that have roles with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, but sometimes, some ways it's completely on their own, some ways it's completely on their own. Also, the courts, those differences too, black pupils. We have the same color eyes and different color eyes at the same time, so there are exceptions. Some people have the same color eyes with the exceptions too. And some of those people have different color skin at the same time. Nature is showing us that difference comes from what is hyper simultaneously united and independent as itself. All exceptions in exception nature that appear to be in demonstration of other. They come with these demonstrations, this demonstration / s of the same thing / s. But we are prevented, short words proper. See, too long identities of law instead have left statutes and precedents based on readings of statutes and precedents. For example, they give them the benefit of the doubt at the last second, like with courts are leading up to it. In other words, so in other words, knowingly, they just bring things there. Make on a mass scale. There is evidences racketeering worse than war crimes at countries A through Z, black pupils. Again, we will use the hyperscope to peer right through. No, so pantheism is a science that English was revealed to teach as a grouped language, appreciating the science that appreciates group difference / s, the way it shows. One of the things that shows us is to appreciate how distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneously / hyper simultaneously, it is grouped 5 ways and 3 ways where its identity the identity, the hyper simultaneous. To begin with, it's discernment. Again, it is an identity that is distinct per science needing to discern it distinct, where how its identity of relationship to itself, and the only increasing value of that is, for example, relative to, from, as, with, and for, why. Our species volume, the way it is manifest, is not invented by us. It was not invented by the other species volumes. How and why they have two eyes. They have quality aspects in nature and minds. It means to communicate in awareness, distinct from our own, but also non-distinct. More and more hyper additional nature is being made as itself. Both the Quran and the Old Testament come with parts up front, for example, for science, that dictate how to read those books. People don't even know about those parts because the difference between the people defending the books with passions, emotions, styles of logic, natures of logic, and the people attacking them is have been used effectively by the breaching method. They use this difference /s. All sides with the World Trade Center attack in their difference is used. A whole bunch of people next to Trinity College are tied to a Mark Violet and a Mike Violet. I never had a conversation verbally with Mike Violet in my life. And his neighbors, he got a Joshua Julian, is involved with Harvard Hospital. Men and women with personally and professionally with various natures of courts, with wire crimes, mail crimes, drug crimes, with untimely death rolls on off Trinity College with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, their family members, their neighbors. In other words, neighbors of Eric Jensen in Newington, people in Newington associated with Ray Cololo, involved with social. What are those people? All kinds of guns associated with people with the name Kerr. More than one Jerry Kerr and a Michael Kerr associated with a Blue Trails place with a Joe DeMoro, and a whole bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, have been planting evidences and attaching kids that are in the same grade, referred to as a class, but they're in different classes. And they're putting them in instances described into databases with passions and emotions, pretending they had communications with others. And there were/are increasing uses of that recorded as rules leading up to the World Trade Center attack that Connecticut intercities names had in that context and sense. A whole bunch of people with the foreign and domestic intelligence associated with people with the name Scalora are also involved with Wethersfield Police wire crimes. And people that said their cousins or theirs made confessions about their roles with home break-ins. Heather Hansen also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with this, planting evidences with the people at Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College, with co-defendants of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, other people that work with New Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts, and Connecticut's District Court. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have roles with federal evidences, crimes with judges and prosecutors at West Hartford locations, at spots along Park Street and at the corner of Park Street and New Park Avenue with Emily or Amy, associated with foreign and domestic military. And these names associated with the court next to the World Trade Center too, Ninth Circuit Court. These are people that were proven afterwards having post-dated legal papers from inside that court. Also, at the same time, while names on all sides of that case were increasingly involved with predicate acts against me narratives and natures. And they've been forcing worse than groupthink. by attaching everyone to fake conversations, fake ties, fake natures of ties to other people. There was an Eric Oliver did a weird behavior near a Keene family years ago, where I had no beer, I didn't ask for beer, I wanted a beer. I was in a car. He got out and opened the beer on a bench across from their house. These are one of the people that were brought in by World Trade Center attack rolls with years before, and then people the night before in Manhattan, right next to the World Trade Center. And as the people involved, it was proven after that day that they showed the panel of judges in the court next to the World Trade Center legal papers that had been post dated from inside the court. A whole bunch of people with New Britain Superior Court are tied to a Jonathan Maiano and a Rick Cianfaglione and a Leahy family that has pretended through the mail also they had conversations with it. And they have roles with a Joshua Julian on Facebook with a principal child offender and by more people involved then and now with worse than just upskirt pictures, also on Twitter. Now these people pretend that we have differences with others for different things. The police departments have been doing this. A whole bunch of police forms from different cities are involved with Wethersfield town officers through time, where they have wire crime action roles with the Wethersfield police fabricating with other police departments and other police forms and forensics families, faked phone conversations, changed phone conversations, even attached me as a fake conversations with them. I never went down to the police station. I had police report with anyone. Never had made police report when I was a kid. They pretended other with WFSB while they were pretending they had fake conversation with me to prevent me a voice when they charged me with harassment and fabricated audio and video. When people rolls with untimely deaths on and off campuses, also brought up confessions tied to the principal child defender's campus. And he made confessions and demonstrations to me and confirmations over the phone and with a whole bunch of messages. And they hid that and fabricated audio and video. These are a whole bunch of judges tied to a Cololo family with a Delaferra family and a Spada family. They have probate judges and their family members, other probate court judges' families associated with Dr. Shub of Modern Languages from Trinity College. And he used to work at Yale. And Yale has roles with psychiatry where those databases, it's not just Yale, it's UConn, Yale, these are great schools. UConn, Harvard, these are great schools, but it is concentrated corruption, foreign and domestic, where, like, for example, the Institute of Living, founded on the campus of Hartford Hospital in 1822, as roles with a whole bunch of names sticking fake things in those databases, using and having used all natures of investigators remotely as the breaching method showed them they needed to, and simultaneously for past reasons, for active group reasons, and for reasons to come. It shows them that, where it is recorded, how they use all sides in criminal and civil cases as forced, measured and maintained collusion /S and the news at the same time, keeping other things, others themselves, blamed for negative value, the cause of, for example, blamed for the cause of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. That was the breaching method, which in nature itself was demonstrating to us to call it the breaching method and our founders. But we have other communicated about that breaching method. So one of the things, even if it was made up, that witch trials was about